It's 4 o'clock. The top stories live on 7 News. Crews search far and wide for a boy swept out to sea on a family Central Coast fishing trip. Shock police theories put before an inquest into William Tyrrell's disappearance. And Donald Trump dials up the dark rhetoric 2 days out from the US election.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Good afternoon. An extensive search is being carried out as we go to air for an 11-year-old boy who was swept out to sea on the Central Coast. The child was dragged out by a powerful current while trying to cross a channel with his father and 3 younger brothers. Annie Pullar is at the entrance.
Good afternoon. The family of the missing boy has spent 24 hours searching desperately, hoping for a miracle. The 11-year-old travelled here to the entrance from Sydney yesterday for a day of fishing with his father and 3 younger brothers, aged 9, 7 and 3. But the outing suddenly took a tragic turn around 5:15 p.m. when the group attempted to cross a notoriously dangerous, unpatrolled channel. Bystanders say the father was carrying 2 of his children, but the 11-year-old was following behind when he was pulled out to sea. Many locals raced over, helping to bring his siblings to safety as the father dived into the water, swimming after his 11-year-old, but sadly, he couldn't reach him.
We heard yelling out and looked over and saw a man rushing through the water, and then noticed a little boy in the waves with his arm up.
He was gone in a couple of seconds, and the father just was hysterical. It was horrible.
The boy's father and other relatives haven't stopped looking for the 11-year-old, joining a multi-agency land, air and sea search, with police divers this afternoon locating the boy's towel and fishing chair. The family speaks little English, and locals say there needs to be better warning signs about the dangers of swimming here.
If they had signs in different languages, you'd break the barrier of getting a message through.
There is signage up down there, and all those things will be part of the investigation.
The search area has extended as far south as Avoca today, with police deploying as many resources as possible to try and find the little boy.
An inquest into the disappearance of William Tyrrell is this week focusing on the police theory that his foster mother loaded his body into a car and buried it after an accidental death. Counsel assisting told the probe today it's thought she illegally disposed of the remains when the toddler fatally fell from the balcony of his foster grandmother's home. The allegations have long been denied. Leonie Ryan with a full report after 4:30. To news just in, and an AFL umpire has been suspended over an end-of-season costume scandal. Lee Howson dressed up as terrorist Osama bin Laden at a function the day after the grand final in a private room at a Melbourne restaurant. The theme was characters from the 2000s. In a statement, the AFL said there were no skits involved and he wore a mask, but only for a short period of time before removing it. Federal politicians are back in Canberra today for the first time since the flight perk scandal broke. Live to our political reporter Rob Scott in Parliament House. Rob, this issue just isn't going away.
No, it's not, Anne, as much as the Prime Minister would like it to. He has been desperate today to speak about the policy that he announced on the weekend, the plan to slash student debt by up to 20%. Meeting with university students and apprentices here at Parliament House this afternoon. Students who are set to save thousands as a direct result of this policy.
It'll make such a huge difference, yeah. Have any of you worked out how much you'll save from this?
$7,000 for me.
$7,000.
$7,000, which is going to make my life a bit easier, hopefully.
Great. Yeah, at a time when you need it, when you're trying to get yourself settled and starting your working life.
That media opportunity was clearly arranged to try to generate another day of coverage for this policy, which the government says will make life easier for around 3 million young Australians. But the flight upgrade scandal was always going to suck the oxygen out of the political debate, with the number of MPs handing back membership to the Qantas Chairman's Lounge growing by the day.
I think you'll see when you look in the next 28 days at the register of interest, there'll be quite a few people who will be handing back their membership to airline lounges.
I've been calling on the airlines to stop all upgrades for politicians, because I think this is in fact affecting the public trust in politicians, and that's really important.
Now, Greens leader Adam Bant, who is still a member of the Chairman's Lounge, says he's open to changing the rules to ban politicians for asking for and receiving flight upgrades for personal travel. Anne?
Rob Scott in Canberra. Thank you, Rob. In the final 2 days of campaigning and with polls neck and neck, both US presidential hopefuls are barnstorming the battleground states. Donald Trump told supporters in Pennsylvania he wouldn't mind if the press was shot at, while Kamala Harris promised a fresh start at a rally in Michigan. Correspondent Tim Lester reports.
Donald Trump made his way here to small-town Kinston in central North Carolina today for one of his many pre-election rallies. As he came, new polling in the rural state of Iowa suggests his grip on rural and small-town America may not be as strong as many had thought. It shows in a state where he held a commanding lead just several months ago, Kamala Harris now leads by the narrowest of margins.
They just announced a fake poll. Hey, think of it. Right before the election, that I'm 3 points down. I'm not down in Iowa.
Not even Democrats believe they're about to win Iowa, but they do say this could be a sign that some of the 5% or so of the American electorate who hadn't decided up until recently may have moved firmly towards Kamala Harris, and that might affect the vote in some of the real battleground states nearby. This as Donald Trump ramped up his violence rhetoric at a campaign rally earlier in Pennsylvania.
I have a piece of glass over here, and I have this piece of glass here. But all we have really over here is the fake news, right? To get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much.
The Trump message growing darker the closer he gets to Election Day, a contrast to the Democrat Kamala Harris, who's been campaigning today in Michigan.
I am feeling great. I am looking forward to these next 48 hours to continue to talk with the voters. So my ballot is on its way to California, and I'm going to trust the system that it will arrive there.
Most major polls have the two candidates way too close to make any confident predictions about the outcome of the election. Already, more than 74 million Americans have voted out of a likely total of 150 to 160 million.
The brave police officer who took down the Westville Bondi Junction stabbing attacker is among the New South Wales nominees for the 2025 Australian of the Year. Inspector Amy Scott's heroics in April were recognised. Gender violence campaigner Jess Hill and scientist Dr. Carl Kruzelnicki are among those up for the prestigious prize. The different category winners will be known next week, joining finalists from across the country for the national awards to be announced in January. Angie Asimus joins us now with the latest weather forecast. Hi there, Angie. There was a significant cold change today.
Yeah, and a long way off those tops, around 30 degrees yesterday. It even looked cold outside. There was very little sunshine in the picture today. The skyline was grey and produced some light showers. So the top in the CBD was 20 degrees. It doesn't look too chilly, but southerly winds meant it was cool out in the breeze. Now, the wet weather was light and patchy. A band of showers moved through during the late morning, but only amounted to about a millimetre or so in the gauge. A cold front is causing that change. It moved through central parts of the state today before reaching the northeast a short time ago. Ahead of that, it remained hot, 34 degrees today at Lismore, and the air mass preceding that system is also very unstable. Perfect ingredients for storm formation, and there is a warning area right now highlighted in yellow. That's impacting the mid-north coast, northern tablelands and northern rivers. Storms are a chance in Sydney this evening as well. I'll have an update on that situation shortly, Anne.
Thanks, Angie. See you then. Next on 7, a Molotov cocktail attack in Mona Vale. Plus, royal rage, flood survivors pelt mud at the Spanish King and Queen. Posties reveal the Sydney suburbs where dog attacks are surging, and Australia's teen sprint sensation runs up new track records.
Big news breaks in every street, in every suburb, every day.
7 News has been sent this exclusive vision.
When you see something Sydney needs to know about, share it with 7 News Sydney on email or text. 7 News Sydney, live at 6.
The most historic US election in our lifetime. Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. With 7's correspondents live across America, led by Michael Usher and Angela Cox, with Natalie Barr live from the White House. Watch history unfold. Wednesday, live on 7.
You're live with 7. Thanks for your company. It's 19 degrees and overcast in the city this afternoon. Police are hunting a firebug who threw a Molotov cocktail at a home in Mona Vale, leaving a woman in hospital with burns to her arms. The victim was sitting on her veranda at the time of the attack last night. The 45-year-old extinguished the fire with a garden hose before calling 000. It's understood her injuries are not life-threatening. The King and Queen of Spain had mud and abuse hurled at them during a visit to the flood zone. An attempt to calm and console locals backfired as survivors rage over the response to the disaster that's killed at least 217 people. Ben Downey reports.
This is an outburst that felt inevitable. One of the unifying sentiments inside the flood zone is one of anger as well as abandonment at authorities. King Felipe came to express sympathy and was met by an angry mob shouting murderer, shame and get out as he arrived nearly a week after the floods. Queen Letizia left by Porta crying and in shock with mud on her face. It's the town most devastated by the disaster Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez describes as the European continent's worst flood in a century. He was also chased out of the town with residents hurling mud and debris at his convoy. Most residents didn't receive alerts until hours after floodwaters had destroyed their homes and killed their loved ones. Much of the anger is also directed at Valencian President Carlos Mazón, after he posed for tourism photo ops instead of chairing disaster meetings and issuing alerts the day of the disaster. With the death toll now passing 200 people, anger is also being fueled by the fact it's volunteers, not the military or authorities, leading the recovery response.
In the lead up to Christmas, Australia Post is pleading with dog owners to keep their pets under control. There's been a frightening surge in attacks on posties. In the past 6 months alone, there have been more than 1,200 incidents across the country. In Sydney, the suburbs of Lidcombe, Alexandria and Ingleburn had the highest rates.
Someone rings the doorbell, put your dog in another room. We often find the dogs sneak through the door as soon as it's open.
Australia Post wants councils to implement tougher measures on dangerous dogs. Australian teenage sprinter Gart Gart has again shown why he's a force to be reckoned with on the athletics world stage. At the weekend, he pulled off a blistering run in the All-Schools Queensland Track and Field Championships. The 16-year-old stormed to an astonishing 20.29 second finish in the 200-metre heats. That's 0.01 of a second faster than Usain Bolt's record when he was the same age. It was a personal best, the fastest time by an Aussie in 31 years, and set several new records. Next in 7's afternoon news, we'll have sport with Matt Carmichael, including early wickets for Mitchell Starc in the first one-day international against Pakistan. Also, Zach Lomax applauding Ben Hunt for following him out of the Dragons. And later, the battle for borrowers' dollars puts pressure on a big bank's bottom line.
Millions of flying bloodsuckers infesting their backyards. Fears a public health emergency is brewing.
The news team that never stops, slamming their way through the glass doors before taking an entire ATM.
Donald Trump has seized on comments made by Joe Biden.
7 News.
Tonight in 7 News, a father's desperate act to rescue his son swept into the ocean. Donald Trump's new threat just days out from the US election. Meat bought off the street, the dangerous new black market. Spain's king pelted with insults and mud. And Coldplay fans left shocked by an onstage accident. 7 News at 6.
Matt Carmichael's here now with sport, and we're all set for a huge day of racing tomorrow, Matty.
A lot of winners to choose from between Sydney and Melbourne. And good afternoon. Between the Melbourne Cup at Flemington and the big dance at Randwick, it's just about as good as it gets. Regan Bayliss will ride Ducast for Michael Friedman, looking to win the race for the second year running. Bayliss rode a tractable to victory last year, giving young Wyong trainer Sarah Ryan the biggest win of her career.
Sarah's always been a good trainer, sort of on the way up, and that really put her name up in lights when a tractable won last year.
Seven's coverage of the big dance begins at midday. With the Cup Parade in Melbourne's CBD cancelled for the second year running, the famous trophy was on display at the Living Legends Farm. UK galloper One Smooth Operator took it easy at Altona Beach. The geldings stormed into calculations after a dominant Geelong Cup victory.
We've had a great time. We came here with no expectations. Really just wanted to get in the race if we could. We're in the race, we've got a fighting chance.
Champion trainer Chris Waller has 5 runners, including co-favourite Buckaroo. The international summer of cricket is underway, with Pat Cummins sending Pakistan into bat in the first one-dayer in front of a small MCG crowd. Coldplay's Chris Martin settled in to watch a hot opening spell from Mitchell Starc. Saeem and Abdullah gone, it was 2 for 24.
There's some noise, it's brushed the glove or bat.
That left Pakistan relying on the mercurial Babar Azam, who got going with boundaries off Cummins and Starc, but Adam Zampa came on and took the big wicket. Babar for 37, 4 for 70 after a Pat Cummins brute to Kamran Gulan. Sacked Bulldog Josh Adokar has been spotted meeting with new Eels coach Jason Riles. From Kangaroos camp, Zach Lomax says he chose Parra to play centre, and alongside Clint Gutherson, the captain, he's been told he's not wanted.
It would obviously be ideal to have him there, absolutely. He's got a massive impact and influence on the team and obviously especially the players, but the club as well.
Lomax applauded Ben Hunt's decision to quit the Dragons like he did.
To go at his character and the way he goes about his footy, and he's probably going to play 400 games. He's probably going to be the second person to ever play 400 games, and mate, he's the best dad I've seen as well.
The Aussies sound understandably awestruck by the mighty Tongan forwards before Sunday's Pacific final. There's no doubt Tottenham are the entertainers of the Premier League. This time they came from behind to beat top 4 contenders Aston Villa, trailing at half-time. Ange Postecoglou's men scored 4 times. They've scored the most goals of all teams, but still sit in 7th place.
Maddison going quickly. Oh! The seal set on an impressive victory.
In their first league game since the sacking of Erik ten Hag, Manchester United drew 1-1 with Chelsea. In 1,121 Grands Prix, only 5 drivers had won from 17th on the grid or lower until Max Verstappen's masterful performance in the wet, dangerous conditions that troubled nearly everyone else in the Brazilian GP. It leaves the Dutchman on the verge of a 4th Drivers' Championship.
I mean, unbelievable to win here from so far back on the grid. We stayed out of trouble, we made the right calls, we stayed calm, and we were flying.
From pole, Lando Norris dropped to 6th and now trails Verstappen by 62 points with 3 races to go. Oscar Piastri struggled in 8th. Somehow, Aussie Jack Miller is okay after this.
Damage further back, big crash further back, and a real first corner melee here.
The Aussie's head hit another bike's tyre in the huge Malaysian Grand Prix pile-up. Francesco Bagnaia kept the title race alive. He trails Jorge Martin by 24 points heading into the final round. 5 Chris Waller runners going out on a limb. I do like the sound of Buckaroo. It's a great name.
Does sound good, doesn't it? Can't go wrong with Chris Waller, hey?
Yep.
Thanks, Matty. It was the biggest movie premiere of the year. One of Sydney's busiest streets transformed into the yellow brick road to welcome the cast of Wicked, the 6 leading stars kicking off a global press tour in the city.
Munchkinland shuts down Market Street in Sydney, the long-running Broadway stage musical, now a massive Hollywood blockbuster. The untold story of Oz, where 2 young women meet as students at Shiz University before becoming Glinda the Good and the Wicked Witch of the West.
It feels really beautiful to work on something that you are passionate about and work on something where the message resonates on every page.
Being here with everyone and even just getting off the plane with everybody and just being like, here we go. It's all happening after such a long time.
As well as witches, munchkins and talking animals, there's Fiero, a carefree prince.
Dancing through life, mindless and careless.
I'm Fiero.
Oh, Oz.
The film is so fantastic, but I feel in your part there's a kind of a little bit of a flavour of Backstreet Boys, Nick Carter flavour.
How did you've gone straight to my mood board. It was Justin Timberlake sort of, yeah.
The heart of the story, Elphaba and Glinda, who forge an unbreakable bond, even as their destinies lead them down different paths.
We're very choked up.
Yeah.
Please don't make fun of us. Please calm down. I already know. No, it's not.
Everyone here like this and everyone's dressed up in the pink and green. It's really wonderful.
My mom came at 6 in the morning to scope it out.
And your mom came here?
Oh yes, she came here and she somehow got through the barrier. I think she was like, I'm Glinda's mom or something, and then she came in and she was sending pictures of all the fans who have been here since last night.
5 a.m. People have been here since 5 a.m.
I know.
Morning.
Some people slept over.
Oh my gosh.
It's too much.
We just didn't expect this.
There's chemistry and then there's you two, which seems like such a beautiful friendship too.
Yeah. That's it.
That's really it.
I think we were just trying to be as truthful and as honest as we possibly could with these women, these wonderful ladies that we got to play, and I hope that's what happens.
Top stories are next. Plus, a family's heartache as a judge decides if a Campbelltown paramedic's killer can be criminally responsible. Sydney joins an exclusive global run club attracting 35,000 from around the world. And all aboard the Cup Cruise. Sydney siders sail into Melbourne for tomorrow's race.
Defying gravity with the entire cast of Wicked. The stars of the year's biggest movie are in Australia and on Sunrise. Plus, the most important election of our lifetime. Join Natalie Barr live on the ground at the White House for this historic moment in history. Start with Sunrise.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Welcome back. Our main story this hour, the hope of finding an 11-year-old boy alive is fading almost 24 hours after he was swept out to sea on the Central Coast. Emergency crews received the alert at the entrance around 5 o'clock last night. It's believed he'd been trying to cross the channel with his father and 3 younger brothers when he was pulled into the ocean by a powerful current.
The family are very distraught and they're being well supported by our family liaison officer, chaplains, and we'll assist them as much as we can moving forward.
An extensive land, air and sea search has so far failed to find the boy. After long delays, an inquest into the disappearance of William Tyrrell has finally resumed and is considering a theory that the 3-year-old died in an accidental fall. Police believe his foster mother may have then disposed of his body, a claim she has always denied. Leonie Ryan reports.
Good afternoon. Well, this is the 5th and second last hearing into the inquest of the suspected death of William Tyrrell. There have been repeated delays. The coroner was due to hand down her findings in 2021, but police asked for a suspension so they could conduct further investigations. Surprisingly, the now officer in charge, David Laidlaw, will not be giving evidence. His statement will be tendered, though large parts of it will be redacted. Why? We don't know, which raises the question, what was contained in the file which sat on the desk of the DPP recommending charges potentially be laid against William's foster parents. The theory they were involved will be examined in the coming days, including evidence from experts on bone disintegration, soil and waterways in the area. William Tyrrell disappeared from his foster grandmother's Kendall home in 2014, and despite one of the state's biggest searches, he hasn't been found. The latest theory by police is that he fell from the balcony at the home and died, and his foster mother covered it up, dumping his body in bushland. A number of videos will be played during this hearing, including 2 interviews with the child that was at the home at the time. With all this additional evidence, it could take many months for the coroner to deliver her findings.
A man who stabbed paramedic Stephen Toga to death in an ambulance outside Campbelltown McDonald's could be found not criminally responsible. Psychiatrists for both the defence and prosecution have agreed he did not know his actions were wrong. Grace Fitzgibbon reports.
Well, it's been a highly emotional day for the family of Stephen Toga, who sobbed uncontrollably inside court as they heard disturbing details of how the 29-year-old died. The paramedic was on night shift grabbing a meal at McDonald's in Campbelltown last April when 23-year-old Jordan Finneganafo is accused of charging at him with a knife, stabbing him more than 50 times in what medical experts have described as a psychotic episode. Toga died en route to hospital and was survived by his then pregnant wife, who gave birth to their baby girl just 2 months later. Today, the 29-year-old paramedic's family could not hold back their tears, listening to Finneganafo plead not guilty to 6 charges, including murder, on mental health grounds.
We're not happy. It's just so very hard to accept the opinions of others.
The court heard a number of psychologist reports concluded that the accused displayed signs of severe mental impairment at the time of the incident. The Supreme Court judge now has the task of determining whether or not he can be held criminally responsible for Stephen Toga's death. Essentially, did he know that what he was doing was wrong? The matter has been adjourned for the next 3 days, due back here in the Supreme Court on Friday.
Polling shows Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are effectively tied in one of the closest US election races in history. But the voting system Americans use is entirely different to how we vote in Australia. Our foreign editor Hugh Whitfield explains.
When Americans head to the polls on November 5th, they won't actually be voting for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Instead, they'll be voting for a series of electors that make up the Electoral College. Today, there are 538 electors, and each state is given a number of these based roughly on their population, combining their allocation of Congress seats in the House and Senate. In order to win the presidency, a candidate must secure a majority of these electors, totalling 270 votes in the Electoral College. In most US states, these electors are awarded to the candidate that wins the most votes. For example, in 2016, all 29 of Florida's Electoral College votes were awarded to Donald Trump, despite Hillary Clinton securing nearly 48% of the vote in that state, which is why a candidate can win the national vote while losing the Electoral College. The exceptions to this rule are Nebraska and Maine, who award their electors based on each district's vote. While all 50 states are in play each election, just a handful typically decide the outcome. And in 2024, the election will likely come down to just 7 swing states: Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan and Wisconsin. Whichever candidate manages to win over more voters in these battlegrounds will likely become the next President of the United States of America. Hugh Whitfield.
The Sydney Marathon is joining an elite run club. Next year, it'll become the 7th member of the Abbott World Marathon Major. It's an exclusive circuit that features the likes of New York, Berlin, Tokyo and London.
To give you an idea of the scale of this, 840,000 people applied to run next year's London Marathon. That's how many people are keen to join. A fraction of them will be able to race. That's the scale of the demand.
35,000 runners are expected on the starting line on the 31st of August next year. The state government believes it could pump as much as $73 million into the New South Wales economy over the next 3 years. Westpac has posted a $7 billion full-year profit, a 3% decline on last year as the mortgage market heats up. It also announced a $1 billion increase in its shares buyback program. Our business editor Amelia Brace with the figures.
Australia's second largest mortgage lender is feeling the crunch of competition. Westpac's full-year profit came in slightly below analyst expectations, falling 3% to $7 billion. The slide in profits is due to a competitive mortgage market, with borrowers shopping around for a better deal, putting pressure on its margins. Westpac CEO Peter King acknowledged that customers are struggling with more than 47,000 seeking hardship arrangements to pay their mortgages, most needing help for about 3 months. Despite that, he said the economy was showing positive signs.
We've seen consumer sentiment has increased in the last survey. We've seen inflation on a headline basis in the band, on an underlying basis heading towards the RBA's band.
Today's results come on the eve of the next Reserve Bank decision on interest rates. Westpac does not think we'll see any movement tomorrow. In fact, all of the big four banks don't predict a cut until February.
Inflation has come down a long way, but still a little on the high side. Jobs still travelling a little fast, and the Reserve will want to see what happens in the US election.
We'll find out if the RBA board agrees tomorrow afternoon.
Interstate travellers are making their way to the Victorian capital for tomorrow's Melbourne Cup. An astonishing 1 in 10 visitors to Flemington will have arrived by boat. Beth Ann Yeoman has more.
It's all aboard the Melbourne Cup cruise. Almost 3,000 Sydney-siders have sailed into the city, ready for the race that stops a nation. The 6-day cruise offers fashions at sea, fascinator making, Q&As with champion jockeys, and of course, a ticket to the big day. Another 2 cruise ships will arrive here at Port Melbourne tomorrow morning, making up a total of more than 10% of all Cup attendees.
But we bring that kind of Melbourne Cup atmosphere to the ship the second that you embark in Brisbane or Sydney, and we keep that going on the build-up right the way over to Melbourne for the Cup.
They've brought their outfits into us and their matching colours, a lot of reds, pinks, metallics, and they're coming away with coordinated now outfits to wear on Tuesday.
Melbourne Cup Day is one day that brings goosebumps back to my body, obviously being lucky enough to win 2 of them in 83 and 97, but a fantastic day. A lot of people on the cruise are going for their first time.
Earlier today, 1,000 lucky racing fans gathered at Greenvale for the Living Legends event, a substitute for the Melbourne Cup parade, which was cancelled for the 2nd year running due to roadworks in the city. Attendees were given the opportunity to feed some of the champion horses and pose with the $750,000 trophy, which is now making its way back to Flemington ahead of the $8 million race.
ING Bank has our finance update next, plus a health shock for a Dawson's Creek heartthrob. Also ahead, a family snake bite warning, their toddler dodging death, and stage fright for Coldplay's Chris Martin after a trapdoor mishap. It's 22 degrees in Penrith. Our full forecast coming up soon.
Millions of flying bloodsuckers infesting their backyards. Fears a public health emergency is brewing.
The news team that never stops.
Slamming their way through the glass doors before taking an entire ATM.
Donald Trump has seized on comments made by Joe Biden.
7 News. The most historic US election in our lifetime. Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. With 7's correspondents live across America, led by Michael Usher and Angela Cox, with Natalie Barr live from the White House. Watch history unfold. Wednesday, live on 7.
A toddler has survived after being attacked by a deadly eastern brown snake in his Adelaide backyard. The 2-year-old, who's still learning to talk, managed to alert his mum, who was inside doing the laundry.
And then he comes running to the door saying a snake bit him. To have that thought of my son is going to die, there's no words to describe that.
Fortunately, Ezra received a dry bite, which means no venom was injected. Dawson's Creek star James Van Der Beek has revealed he has colorectal cancer. The actor told People magazine that he's remaining optimistic and feeling good despite the diagnosis. The 47-year-old father of 6 thanked his family for their support, but didn't detail his treatment. The Australian share market has started the week on a positive note. Here's James Tower from ING Bank.
Good afternoon. The Aussie market has started the week on a high with the ASX 200 snapping a 3-day losing streak. The index today up about 45 points or just over 0.5%. And banks were a major support today. We had the big four or higher. Westpac up around 1% following the release of its profit results. A $7 billion profit for the year was slightly ahead of analyst expectations, and the stock actually opened down about 2.5% but managed to overturn that throughout the day. There was some weakness from the mining sector, though. We had the major miners or lower mineral resources today, one of the worst, down about 9%. There was an announcement from the company that its managing director and founder Chris Ellison will be stepping aside within the next 18 months. And the Aussie dollar, it's a little firmer as well against a weaker US dollar. It's now buying about 66.1 US cents.
Our 6 p.m. news is coming up with Mark Ferguson and Angela Cox. Mark, what is on the program?
Yeah, good afternoon, Anne. We'll have the very latest on that frantic search for a missing boy who was swept out to sea off the Central Coast and his father's desperate act to try to save him. Also tonight, we're live from Washington as the two presidential candidates deliver very different closing messages. Plus, we'll go into the battleground state that could decide the election. A 7 News investigation, the black market groceries you can buy on the side of the road. Exclusive, the new campaign for travellers, making sure you can spot the subtle signs of human trafficking. We reveal what you should look out for. We're behind the scenes as some of Sydney's most talented students hit the stage ahead of the school spectacular. And the Sydney Marathon officially named the 7th wonder of the athletics world, what it means for our city. And we'll have all that and plenty more tonight at 6 o'clock.
We'll see you then. Thanks, Fergo. Coldplay frontman Chris Martin has fallen through a trapdoor on stage in Melbourne. The crowd gasped at the tumble, which was similar to a concert mishap for Olivia Rodrigo 3 weeks ago. Rochelle Brown reports.
You're about to see the moment Coldplay star Chris Martin fell through the stage while performing in Melbourne. The 47-year-old was walking backwards, talking to the audience, when he suddenly fell through a trapdoor at Marvel Stadium.
That's not planned. Thank you for catching me.
A production staff member was able to catch him as he fell, and he pushed on with the final Melbourne show.
Thank you, guys. Holy shit. That was nearly a YouTube moment. Yeah, I'm okay, thank you, I'm okay.
If you are dealing with a performer like Chris Martin, who's very loose, who wanders the stage, he's very kind of free flow, and even walks backwards as he was here, you can't afford to have an open trapdoor. It's just not a risk you can take.
It comes just weeks after Olivia Rodrigo took a tumble on stage at a different Melbourne stadium.
There's just a hole in the stage.
It marks the second hurdle for Coldplay after Guy Berryman fell ill and failed to take the stage for night one of the Music of the Spheres tour.
Our beautiful bass player Guy is very, very sick. I'm sorry for all of you guys down here who are waiting to see Guy. He's not going to be able to play today.
The band will continue their tour with 4 more shows in Sydney. Their final performance of the year will be in New Zealand.
Live next on our afternoon news, your latest weather outlook with Angie Asimus.
Good afternoon, Andrea Pronomo here in the Freedom Traffic Chopper. Big delays for Parramatta Road at the moment in Homebush West for Parramatta Road westbound approaching Homebush Bay Drive. It's on recovery mode westbound following an earlier multi-vehicle pile-up. Right now in Lidcombe, a breakdown that we've just spotted on Parramatta Road eastbound at Hill Road at the Chevron Lane. Freedom's blackout sale is on now. Get up to 30% off selected sofas and furniture and up to 50% off mattresses. Don't miss out, only at Freedom.
Big news breaks in every street, in every suburb, every day.
7 News has been sent this exclusive vision.
When you see something Sydney needs to know about, share it with 7 News Sydney on email or text. 7 News Sydney, live at 6. Tonight in 7 News, a father's desperate act to rescue his son swept into the ocean. Donald Trump's new threat just days out from the US election. Meat bought off the street, the dangerous new black market. Spain's king pelted with insults and mud. And Coldplay fans left shocked by an onstage accident. 7 News at 6.
Mariah Carey has been immortalised in wax. The pop star came face to face with her likeness at the official unveiling at Madame Tussauds in New York City. The dress is inspired by Marilyn Monroe and the jewellery is her own. The singer described the experience as surreal.
We wanted to make an all-out wax. Mariah is my new best friend.
It took 20 artists more than 9 months to make the creation. Angie's here with our forecast. What's the latest on those storms, Angie?
And warnings still cover the state's northeast, and Sydney could see some storm activity later this afternoon or evening. Now, the top in the CBD was 8 degrees cooler than yesterday, reaching a top of 22. That is down on average for this time of year. Now, this is the current storm warning area over New South Wales, shown in yellow. So the air mass preceding a cold front tracking across our state is both warm and unstable, perfect for storm formation. Behind that system, high pressure will once again become the dominant feature. We're already seeing more settled conditions in the state's south. That high and a trough will draw very warm conditions over most regions, the heat reaching Sydney from about midweek. So around the capitals tomorrow, you can see that warmth reaching the southern cities first, a top of 30 degrees on the way for Adelaide. Melbourne on track for 26 degrees and Canberra to reach 27. Back in the CBD, it's looking quite mild tonight. 17 is the forecast low, a top of 23. Overall, it is going to be cloudy again. A passing shower is a chance. That's most likely before early afternoon. To the next 7 days, Wednesday is when temperatures will start to climb again. 27 degrees in the CBD, up to 33 in our west. Then temperatures peaking on Thursday, 33 in the city, 36 in our west with a couple of late showers. Warm again Friday, but it will be fine. I'll have more weather coming up at 6 o'clock with those storms, Anne.
All right, thanks very much, Angie. And that's Sydney's 4 p.m. news for this Monday. Angela Cox and Mark Ferguson will bring you 7 News at 6. I'm Anne Sanders. Stay with 7 now for the Chase Australia, and I'll see you for the 11:30 a.m. news tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want every minute of every day, including breaking news alerts. Download the 7 News app now.